of 23 better wake up. This is your time to celebrate. What an incredible time to graduate. There's an evolution going around the world, an evolution in almost everything that is happening. Whether we're looking at outer space or we're looking at saving the planet. There's a revolution going on, whether we're looking at skilling the world or we're looking at new medical sciences. In all of that, there's an incredible amount of disruption going on and a lot of innovation going on. So we have evolution, we have revolution, we have disruption, we have innovation. And the beauty is, it's all happening in our nation. And I think we should all be extremely proud of that, and you all should look at that as a great entry point for how you're going to step out into the world. I also want to say, with this, there is a lot of convergence happening. 10 years back, if you were looking at things, you would look at mathematics, you would look at engineering, you would look at science in very different ways. Be prepared, the world is converging. Whether it's maths, whether it's engineering, whether it's science, whether it's data, whether it's analytics, and now whether it's artificial intelligence. So those are your supreme opportunities as you step out in the world. Why am I here? I think a little bit of background on myself gives you a sense of where I come from and what I think are one or two learning lessons I want to share with you. I come from a lower middle class background in a family. My dad was a professional, but my brother was the academic in the family and was a PhD. And I think at a very early stage, I reached multiple crossroads in my life and then decided that I wanted to start off in entrepreneurship. And I think the two things that I got from my parents, like all of you all, and as CP said earlier, to thank all of your first teachers here, which are all the parents here. My dad said two things when he finally accepted that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, which means at that time it was a social stigma because it meant you couldn't get yourself a good job, so you had to start working for yourself. And he just said, overall, two things to me. One, why don't you go and finish your chartered accountancy and then become an entrepreneur? And the second thing he said, if you finally want to do what you want to do, I just want to tell you, you're going to be out on your own because we don't have the financial capability to bail you out when you fail. So my first two lessons were very clearly, never have a plan B in real life. Because if I did do my chartered accountancy, chances are I may not have moved out and become an entrepreneur. And the second one is, you are on your own. At the end of the day, you decide necessarily what course you want to take in your profession or in every aspect of that. And therefore, I see myself as a product of super skills. Anand referred to them as soft skills. I'm upgrading them to super skills because soft just has a very soft tenure to it. And I've sort of felt the need that for all of us here today, in the 21st century, it's not about only what we learn, it's not about only the environment we work in, but how do we develop ourselves on a constant basis. And I think therefore, if I'm a product of super skills, which I learned on my own, and I'm a product of the choices that I made. And I say that because I think going out from here, one of the most important things for me, more than the multiple failures I've had, is the choices. Because when you're out there looking to make choices, a high sense of maturity and ownerousness comes onto you. But the second part is, you constantly get to a place where you want to be at crossroads. You create opportunities. You want to be in multiple places at multiple times so that at least twice or thrice you are in the right place at the right time. Some people call it luck, some people call it design. And I think for each of you, you have to internalize which are you're going to be the crossroads of what you want to do. But remember, at the end of the day, we are a product of the choices we make. In the 6 super skills that I go by, and all of them just ironically happen to be starting with a C, for me, clarity has been pretty important from the very first day in which I ventured out on my own. And by clarity, I mean not just constantly, the multiplicity of choices are there, you have to narrow them down and figure out how are you going to get more clarity. And the only way you can do that is keep it simple. The second for me is exactly right here. I'm connecting with all of you. I'm communicating with all of you. And I think for all of us, with all our formal learning, if we don't really learn how to connect, communicate is a little bit more of a heavy word. Sometimes it's an intimidating word because people feel I need to be fluent in my language, I need to have the gift of the gab, I should be able to have a tonality in my voice. None of that is important. Because if you can connect one-on-one, one-on-5, one-on-20, that changes everything you want to do. The third is conviction, self-conviction. And if somebody asks me, how did I get out of every single time I failed? I think there was only one thing that I went back on, is your own self-conviction. Because when you do fail, and when you do have your setbacks, that's the only reservoir you can go back on. The fourth is curiosity. I think at my stage and age, I actually do pride myself. A lot of us talk about humility, but actually if you're not curious, you'll never be humble, because you won't be a good listener. And I think that mantra has worked incredibly, incredibly well for me. I'm very happy to be here on a Saturday because I'm curious. I'm curious to learn more. I'm curious to understand what all of you all are thinking. Second last is change. For most of us at various crossroads in our life, it's a big challenge to constantly look at change because the world is changing. So it can be extremely intimidating, but it doesn't need to be. Change now is going to be there. How you manage change is going to be really defining good from great. And lastly, as I mentioned, the choice. The choices you make. Those are your crossroads, and if I can leave those thoughts with you to reflect. I have a few more smaller points that I want to end with. Mohit mentioned right at the start, you all are blessed. You all are privileged. I just want to echo that. You're privileged being in a university, having the opportunity here, having the parents that have given you the wisdom and the opportunity and worked hard for you to be here and to be in such a prestigious institution. With that comes responsibility. Second, I would urge each of you, we have to constantly reflect how the other half lives, because that's the only way we can be a complete person with 8 billion people on this planet. That's the only way we're going to be complete people and we can create an impact. We have to know how the other path lives. With that, empathy will come in and a lot more learning will come in. Make success your own word. I think for too long now, people have started to reflect and looked at the definition of what is success. Success has to be now self-defined in the 21st century. We waste too much time trying to be what we think other people want us to be. And I would urge you, redefine or define your own success. Don't look at it from a quote or a book or an inspiration or a mentor. Define your own. This world is full of opportunities. I had a half-an-hour Zoom call on my way here from the airport today with a group of 9 young ladies who I was mentoring. And they're all cumulatively, I was amazed to understand, setting up a 100,000 square foot museum in Mumbai. And the museum is a museum of solutions. I was just fascinated. I was dumbstruck. I was listening in awe how these young ladies with their vision, of course they had their infrastructure to back them. But can you imagine, with all of you all and your training, what that creates as an impact and how we're thinking about the future? Somebody's thinking of a museum of solutions. And they were talking about an age group of 8 to 14, and I was trying to convince them that it should go past that all the way to 65. Because frankly, that's what we're all looking for in life. It's not always that at a certain age you need to find anything. And that actually brings me to the last point, which is, the good news is you all are graduating today. The bad news is we're now entering the phase of absolute lifelong learning, where every 3 to 4 to 5 years, you may not need to come back to a university, you may be talking to friends, you may be in your entire organization, But learning now is no longer flinging that hat up. It is something that is going to be lifelong. So, I've always learned how we learn and who we learn from is most critical. Thank you very much. Congratulations to all of you and wish you all the best.